if you look at this, this possibility of moving towards something that's more sustainable, the only way it can happen, as I kind of explore in this book, is to look at the underlying values that our civilization is based on, the underlying values that have led to some of those things that you've been describing right now, Paul, and to see if it's possible for a shift in those values that would lead society as a whole to move in a different direction. And the kind of values I'm talking about are things like this notion of consumption being just what we're here on the earth to do. And of course, those ideas themselves come from these massive corporate structures that have been put in existence basically for nothing other than to increase shareholder value that they do by essentially consuming natural resources of the earth, consuming human activities and turning them into the monetized economy. And so then it becomes this kind of self-fulfilling process. So a move towards a great transformation of values would actually involve something fundamental shifting in the capitalist global structure that we have. So it's as if we had ultimately, as a global society, we can choose sort of two options. We can either move to collapse and keep the capitalist global system stable. We can move to that tightness, or we can try to move towards a more sustainable future. But that involves having to look at some of these underlying values of our global capitalist system and shifting some of those. So what do you see as the possibility of that kind of shift?
Well, what I see is most interesting is we never knew each other personally until a few months ago. I had never, I hate to say it, never heard of Jeremy until I picked up his book. And I find that we have had such similar thoughts. For instance, we're both communists, obviously. One of the things that's always impressed me is the way, for instance, the economists at Stanford and every other major university understand nothing about the world and believe that the last couple hundred years in which all human values have been focused on money and the economy is a teeny little blip in our history. There's a wonderful movie made, it got a prize, called The Corporation by Joel Bacon about 15 years ago, maybe it was 10 years ago. And particularly since the decision of the Supreme Court that corporations are just like the rest of us human beings, the movie's wonderful because it takes corporations and it puts them onto a checklist of human nasty psychology. For instance, corporations can't have empathy and they do a check. Corporations only care about one thing. If you believe, as even top economists have said, that corporations have other responsibilities besides the bottom line, the answer is they don't do anything. Money-making corporations, but consider the bottom line. Anyway, goes through this and checks all the characteristics of corporations, and it turns out that if a corporation is a person, an individual just like you, the corporation is a psychopath. That is, it fulfills the checklist, what you're doing if you're trying to diagnose somebody's mental illness. It turns out the corporations are designed to be psychopaths. And